Hey guys, what's going on? BOJoeKO here, and I had a feeling that I would not be waiting very long to make this video for you guys, but since the Stanley Cup Finals ended the other day, congratulations to the Chicago Blackhawks for winning the Stanley Cup, but that's not what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about the Philadelphia Flyers organization and the two buyouts that the team initiated just the other day by buying out the contracts of both Danny Briere and Ilya Bryzgalov. Now I'm going to be giving you guys a whole big spiel about both of these buyouts. Were they good? Were they not good? Did they make the right decision or not? And what basically the team is going to do towards the draft and the offseason free agency, all that stuff. So I guess let's just jump right into this, and we'll start out with the easier of the two people to talk about, and that would be Danny Briere's contract. Now, Danny Briere, 35 years old, he was making $6.5 million on his contract, and now with the buyout, the Flyers will have to pay him $833,000 for the next 4 years with the compliancy buyout. Now, was this a good move for the Philadelphia Flyers to buy out the contract of Danny Briere? It's kind of yes and kind of no. No, in the part that we know what this guy can do when playoffs come. I mean, if you guys go back and look at the stats from Danny Briere's from our Stanley Cup run in 2009, 2010, when we faced the Blackhawks in the Stanley Cup finals, Danny Briere is just an absolute beast when it comes to playoff time. He has the nickname Mr. Playoffs for a reason. I mean, go look at his point totals. I didn't write them down. I looked at them before I made this video. I did not write them down though. But most of the time he has more points than games played. I mean, especially during that Stanley Cup run, the guy had tons and tons of goals. It was absolutely ridiculous. So Danny Briere is one hell of a playoff performer. However, when it comes to the regular season for Danny Briere, he doesn't usually live up to expectations. Now, I will say this, after the Stanley Cup final year in 2010, 2011, and 11 to 12, he didn't have he had an okay season. I think he had I think he averaged maybe like 70-something games both of the years, because he missed a couple games due to injuries both years, because that's what I'm saying. That's one thing about him. He's 35 years old, so he's a little bit more prone to injury nowadays, but he did have about, I think, maybe 60-something points, maybe 60-something point, low 60s for point totals that Danny Briere had for the 10-11, 11-12 season. So it's not that bad, but then, like I said, when playoff time comes, even though we only had short run of the playoffs in both of those seasons, he did manage to get points, and he always scored clutch goals in the playoffs. However, when we take a look at the 2012-2013 lockout season, Danny Briere's stats are laid out as such. He only played 34 of the 48 games, so he missed, 14 games due to injury from that concussion from playing in Berlin, I think, in Germany. When the lockout was happening, he played hockey in Germany. His stats, like I said, 34 games played, 6 goals, only 10 assists, 16 points. And I believe he was on a long drought until he actually got his first point. I mean, he played 34 games, but I don't think he actually got a point until maybe like 10 games after coming back. So that's what I'm saying. This year was just a really bad year for Danny Briere as an overall. He did not live up to expectations. I think it's going to continue for whatever team that he goes on. Now, that's the only reason I don't like the fact that the Flyers got rid of Danny Briere, is just because of the fact that he is one hell of a playoff performer, and that's what kind of team I think he should go to. Danny Briere would definitely benefit from going to a playoff team. Now, where do I think Danny Briere will end up? There's been a lot of speculation of where he may end up. St. Louis was interested in him at the beginning of the season, and if he did not get hurt near the end of the season when he got injured, and that's when the trade deadline came around, I don't think Danny Briere would be here right now, and they wouldn't have to buy his contract out, because I have a feeling that he probably would have got traded to St. Louis in the first place, because St. Louis was interested in him from the very beginning. St. Louis has been a pretty good team for the past couple of years, and they usually just seem to make the playoffs. They don't make deep runs into the playoffs, as you guys can see this year. They got wiped out last year by... Who'd they get beat by? Who did St. Louis get beat by? They got beat by LA, I think. They got beat by LA this year. And I forget who they got beat by last year. I completely forget. But in any event, Danny Briere would benefit from going to St. Louis. I mean, 35 years old, like I said, but St. Louis, yeah, I think he'd be a good fit there. And on another team, Ant's been bugging me about this one, the Devils. I mean, if he goes there, it's only going to give me another reason to kind of hate Danny Briere, but I can't hate a player like Danny Briere who called basically Philadelphia his home and all that good stuff. But I mean, I guess the Devils would be a good fit for him, especially with their kind of lineup. I mean, they could throw Kovalchuk, Zajac, and maybe Danny Briere on their first line. Devils need... I don't know if he would fit out in the Devils so much, because the Devils kind of need somebody, a strict scorer on their team. They don't need somebody who can kind of put assists around. I mean, that's what Zajac, and that's why Zajac and Kovalchuk are playing on the same line together, because Zajac basically gets the assist. Kovy is the goal scorer for that team. They need kind of another depth goal scorer on that team for the Devils, because basically their third and fourth lines really do not have a good goal scorer. Because, I mean, who they have? I mean, Zajac and Kovalchuk, yeah, but then really who depth goal scoring do they have? I mean, whatever the heck his name is, Lakinatov, Andrei Lakinatov, or whatever his name is, he can score some goals, I guess. But other than that, really, there's no other big depth scoring that the Devils have. And Danny Briere could give them that goal scoring, but I think Danny Briere is still more of an assist guy than a goal scorer. So, still, wherever I think Danny Briere goes up, it's definitely going to be a playoff team. And I mean, I think it was the right decision that the Flyers had to do. He's just making way too much money, and the buyout had to be done with Danny Briere for buying out his contract. $6.5 million is a lot of money to save on that. Now, as for a replacement that the Flyers could have for Danny Briere, they were looking at Chicago, because I mean, Victor Stahlberg and Brian Bickle are both going to be unrestricted free agents this year. And Chicago, obviously, is a Stanley Cup team. They want to bring back usually when you win the Stanley Cup, you want to bring back most of your players, because, I mean, why would you go out and get somebody new when you could have the same team that won you the Stanley Cup last year? But, like I said, with the contracts coming up in Chicago with Sharp, Tate, I know Sharp and Kane's contracts are coming up pretty soon. Taves, I think, is signed long term. But yeah, they have to make room for both. I don't know about Sharp or not, but they have to make room for Patrick Kane, because you know how he's going to be asking for a ton of money. They're not going to be able to sign probably both Victor Stahlberg and Brian Bickle. So whichever one, I think they can only afford to sign one. So the Flyers could maybe benefit from picking up the one that they do not sign. If I had to pick between either Bickle or Stahlberg, Bickle had an amazing playoff run this year. So, I mean, if he can carry that over into the regular season, I don't see why not. But I would rather take Victor Stahlberg, just because he gives a more better scoring aspect. And he's kind of like just a replacement to Danny Briere. He kind of plays the exact same type of way that Danny Briere does. Gets a lot of trashy goals in front of the net. That's why I like to call them Danny Briere goals whenever you score in front of the net like that. But Victor Stahlberg would be a good addition to the team if the Blackhawks decide to not sign him and sign Brian Bickle instead. But it's not like the Flyers don't have depth down the Myers that could replace Danny Briere. I mean, they have players like Ty McGinn, Jason Aikson, Eric Wellwood. Players like that could definitely fill in Danny Briere's spot ever so easily. And there's also another player that comes to mind, but we'll get into that in just a minute, because now it's time to talk about the other buyout that the Flyers made just yesterday. Yesterday, I'm recording this on Wednesday, and they made this on Tuesday. I had a feeling that they would not wait long. There was so much speculation leading up to this about whether or not they would buy out Ilya Bryzgalov's contract. Ed Snyder, who's the president of the Flyers, said he likes Ilya Bryzgalov and did not think the Flyers were going to buy him out. But eventually, there was like he said that they weren't going to buy him out, while lots of analysts here in Philadelphia were getting word from lots of other sources that they would buy out Ilya Bryzgalov, and it eventually did happen. So, the stats on Bryzgalov: 33 years old. His contract was, he was making 51 mil over 9 years. So, do quick math there. That's about what, 5 points. I don't know, 4, 5. Let's see, 5 point carry to 6, 60. 7. It's about almost like 5.6 mil that Ilya Bryzgalov was making for the next 9 years. First of all, it was a very stupid move for the Flyers to sign a 30-some-year-old goaltender to a ridiculous contract like that. I mean, that's almost as bad as it's almost as yeah, I will go there. It's almost as bad as the Devils signing Ilya Kovalchuk to that ridiculous long-term deal that they signed him for. Same with the Parise and Suter deal. I mean, yeah, they're young enough, but a 30-year-old guy, that's kind of ridiculous. Kovalchuk's a great player, so I kind of see why the Devils signed him long-term. But that's a goalie, man. That's a goalie. Really, you should not be spending almost close to $6 or $7 million on a goaltender. I mean, watch tons of GM mode commentaries and stuff like that. You'll see that people don't usually sign their goalies to high contracts. While I'm the one talking, I'm the one who has Gordon Beckham signed for $7 million. But there's a difference there. But so with the buyout, the Flyers will have to pay Ilya Bryzgalov a total of $24 million for the next 14 years. So that is what, almost about maybe about $1.5 million for every year for 14 years. So that's a nice payout that Bryzgalov is going to be getting. So now here's the decision. Was this a bad move or a good move that the Flyers decided to buy out Bryzgalov? In my opinion, if you ask tons and tons of Philadelphia air quote this, if you asked Philadelphia Flyers fans if this was a good deal or bad deal, a lot of people would say that this was a good deal for buying out Bryzgalov because, oh, I don't hate Bryzgalov. He never shows up. His character was not the best in the locker room for all the players and whatnot. Personally, I like Ilya Bryzgalov's quirky attitude. I mean, it gets kind of annoying at times, but it kind of lightened the clubhouse somewhat at the times. But as for me, once again, I'm going to go back to a split deal. I think it was both a good deal and a bad deal. I'll tell you why it was a good deal first. One, you get rid of that contract. That contract, like I said, is just way too damn much for Ilya Bryzgalov to handle, like for the Flyers to handle. There's just so much more better ways they could use to spend that money in the first place, because like $5.8 million. Now you could go out. Now the Flyers can go out and fix that defense that's been bothering them for the past, maybe 3-4 years that the Flyers had. They just don't have the defense that they used to have. It's just not there anymore. Now, as for why it's a bad idea, I really think it's going to bite them in the ass. Bryzgalov is going to go to a team that needs a goaltender. Where he's going to go, I'm not really entirely sure. I don't know which team would pick him up. Devils maybe, but I really don't see it there. Brodeur and Hedberg are kind of getting old. Both of them are probably going to retire at the exact same time. And if that's the case, Jersey's going to be without a goaltender. So that's why New Jersey is also looking into a lot of the goaltender free agents that may be coming this year. So maybe Briz could go to the Devils. I mean, the Devils do have sort of a solid defense there. So maybe I could see him going to the Devils. Elsewhere, I really don't know where Ilya Bryzgalov could end up. Now, the way I think it's a bad idea is, I don't care if I get criticized for saying this right now, Bryzgalov is a good goalie. Now, if you take a look at his stats from his short-term year in Philadelphia, he was here for 2 years, his 2-year stand here in Philadelphia, I think he did have a positive record. His goal against average, I think, was around 2.8. The problem was his playoff performance. He was 5-6 in the playoffs, and that is not a very good playoff performance at all. Not at all. I mean, you could definitely have, and I think a goals against average of like over 3. So I mean, just take a look at that Pittsburgh series. I mean, the goals that they scored, the goaltending in that series was outright just terrible anyway. And then the Devils series, when they just completely blew us out anyway, Briz was just not playing the best goaltending that he did. Now the problem why I think it's going to bite us, the Flyers, in the ass is because you put a good defense in front of Ilya Bryzgalov, he's going to play like a good goaltender, be an amazing goaltender. The Flyers did not have a good defense in front of Ilya Bryzgalov. I mean, take a look at last year. Why is the reason that we sucked last year? Because the defense kept getting hurt ridiculous amounts. We lost basically our entire top 6 defense. Really, who was the only person that really did not get hurt? Kimmo Timonen, okay. Luke Schenn, okay. Top 2 guys basically did not get hurt. I mean, who else got hurt? We had to bring in guys like freaking Kent Huskins, Gustafsson. Gustafsson played good. I'll give him that. Oliver Lordson, a rookie, he came in and played. Brandon Manning came and played a couple games. Matt Conan came in and played a couple games. But they're rookies. That's near the end of the season when they brought them in, so they're kind of trying those guys out. Everybody else got hurt. Mazzaros got hurt. Mazzaros kind of came back but then got hurt again. Coburn got hurt for pretty much the entire year. Who else? The Nicholas Grossman. Nicholas Grossman got hurt. Lilia was playing in the frickin' minors because he just wasn't that good defense. But in retrospective, as a whole, the whole entire Flyers defense just got completely shot in the foot. And that's probably one of the main reasons that we did not have a good season. And that's the reason why Ilya Bryzgalov struggled this year, because there was no defense in front of him. I'm telling you, you go put Ilya Bryzgalov on one of the best, maybe, defensive teams in the game. Like, say, I don't know, which team has an amazing defense right now? I want to say Chicago. Boston had a pretty good defense. Actually, no. Boston really didn't have that good of a defense. Anyway, you guys can think on your own. Go think of a team that has an amazing defense out in front of them right now. You go put Ilya Bryzgalov on the team, I guarantee you that Ilya Bryzgalov will have one hell of an amazing goals against, an amazing season on whatever team he goes against. But now here's the decision. Now those are the negatives and pluses. And like I said, if he goes to a team with a good defense, he's going to perform. Then the good side is we get rid of his contract and can spend that money elsewhere. Now, what is that basically, the buying out of Briz, what does that do for our team now in goaltending? We have Steve Mason. Now, Steve Mason was last year 4-2. One hell of an amazing goals against average. He played pretty dang well for the couple games that he was in. Now, the thing is, can he carry that over the next season? I don't know. If they're going to rely on Steve Mason to be the starting goaltender this year, what apparently it looks like they're going to do, I don't know. He is 24 years old. Steve Mason is, I think, yeah, he's like 24 years old, which is a great age for Steve Mason to be at right now for this team. 24 years old with a goaltender. That's an amazing age that we could have got Steve Mason at right now, which means he has basically, what, 8 years in him still left, basically, he's still young. He's still getting better. That's what I'm saying. He's still getting better. Could Steve Mason come back and basically have a Vezina trophy winning season? Just take a look at Sergei Bobrovsky, man. You trade him to Columbus during the draft last year, and look what he does in Columbus. The guy wins the freaking Vezina trophy. I mean, could Steve Mason basically, because they established Sergei Bobrovsky as a starter. Steve Mason was not having a good year with Columbus. They bring in Bobrovsky. He does an amazing job this year. He wins the Vezina. Could that happen with Steve Mason coming over here to Philadelphia? I mean, could he, with him being the starting goalie, could he have that same year? I don't know. The thing that the Flyers will have to do is they have to go out and build a strong defense around Steve Mason. They have Luke Schenn. They have Kimmo Timonen. It looks like they're going to sign Mark Streit, which would be an amazing addition to that defense to help out. I don't know if they're going to bring rookies in. Braden Coburn looks like he's going to come back. So you have a pretty good solid top 4 there. And Schenn, Timonen, Coburn, and who was the third guy I said? Coburn, Timonen, Schenn, and what the hell? I just said it, and I lost the train of thought. Timonen, Shen, Coburn, and yeah, Mark Streit there. Duh. Okay, so that's a good top 4 there. That's a good top 4. Top 6, Mazaros, I don't know. Mazaros could probably come back, and then you need a top 4, another top 6 guy. Who that's going to be, I'm not entirely sure. Could it be Eric Gustafsson? I'm not sure. Could it be Oliver Lordson? I don't know. Whatever the case, the Flyers may even go out and get another defenseman, which is probably maybe the case. They've been talking to tons of teams, like Keith Yandle. Keith Yandle is a name that keeps popping up for the Flyers that they may bring him over here, regardless. But the thing is, the Flyers need another goaltender. Now, here's where it gets interesting. There are tons and tons of goalies that are going to be able to be available in free agency this year, depending on if teams trade them, unrestricted free agents, or buyout contracts. Now, let's go over some of the goalies that are going to be available hopefully may be available this offseason. First, let's start off with Mike Smith. Now, I know what people are going to be saying. Don't jump to conclusions yet. A Phoenix goaltender coming over to Philadelphia. It sounds like deja vu all over again. But the thing is, the difference between Mike Smith and Ilya Bryzgalov, for me, you can have a shitty defense in front of Mike Smith. I trust in Mike Smith to win you a game because of his goaltending. If there was for Philly, for example, there's a shitty defense in front of Ilya Bryzgalov. Do I trust Ilya Bryzgalov to win a game just based on his goaltending? No, I don't. You need a good defense in front of Bryzgalov to win the game, and then Briz starts to play like the goaltender he's supposed to be. Mike Smith, on the other hand, Phoenix's defense is kind of, I mean, they do have Keith Yandle, but really, other than that, there's no other good defense that the Phoenix Coyotes have. I know they have tons of good defensive prospects coming up in the coming years for Phoenix, but other than that, really, other than Keith Yandle, Phoenix's defense is kind of below par. And I believe with that defense there, Mike Smith has to basically on his head every single game. And I trust Mike Smith to win me a game if it's just him in the net and a shitty-ass defense in front of him. I trust in Mike Smith to win games in goal. Will he come there? Will he be a good fit in Philly? I think he would. 1-2 punch with Mike Smith and Steve Mason, that's a pretty good 1-2 combination. Brian Elliott is another name that keeps coming up here. I don't know. St. Louis has to make a decision there. They have 3 goaltenders. Well, really, Brian Elliott and Jake Allen. I'll put these guys both together because they're both with St. Louis. St. Louis has to make a decision on what they want to do in goalie. Do they want to keep Halak and Elliott and trade Allen? Do they want to keep Halak and Allen and trade Elliott? Do they want to keep Elliott and Allen and trade Halak? Do they want to keep... yeah, that's the only combinations I said there. But anyway, St. Louis has to make a decision and goalie on which one they want to keep. I think they're going to keep Halak and trade Brian Elliott. I don't see why they're going to trade Jake Allen when he is going to be a pretty good prospect in goal for the St. Louis Blues, because Yaroslav Halak and Brian Elliott are kind of both in their I think they're both in their late 20s or something like that. So Jake Allen would be a good goaltending prospect that the Blues would have, but I could see them trading him away for some more offensive power that the St. Louis Blues need. The Blues are good on defense, especially with picking up Jay Bouwmeester during the trade deadline last year. The Blues are good, basically pretty good on defense. They need some more offensive. The Blues really do not have a stud on their team that can score goals each and every night. I mean, they have guys like, Perron, Backus, Tarasenko is going to be good for them, Chris Stewart, Berglund, people like TJ Oshie, guys like that. But they really just do not have the one offensive stud that can get shit done for them on offense. So I'm not sure if trading Jake Allen or not would benefit from that, but Elliott and Allen could be 2 names that could pop up here. Ray Emery, we've been through that story before here in Philadelphia. I don't see Ray Emery coming back here. If Ray Emery comes here, you're establishing Steve Mason as the starter, and I don't know if they want to do that. Roberto Luongo, don't get me started here. I don't see the Flyers bringing in Roberto Luongo because it's basically a case of deja vu here. Why would you get rid of Ilya Bryzgalov's high-ass contract to bring in somebody like Roberto Luongo, who also has a hefty-ass contract, basically exactly the same as Ilya Bryzgalov's, and it was especially with the reputation that Roberto Luongo brings in. Al Montoya, I don't see that happening. Evgeny Nabokov, kind of old. He could be, like I said, if you bring in the Nabokov, same thing with Emery, you're establishing Steve Mason as the starting goaltender, and I'm not sure if the Flyers want to do that. Then there's Ryan Miller. Ryan Miller would be one heck of an addition to this Flyers team if the draft, like if these draft polls are kind of lining up the way it seems like the Buffalo Sabres are going to take Zachary Fucale with the whatever pick they have. I think like number 8 or something like that. 6, 7, or 8, I think Buffalo has in the draft this year, and it looks like most of the polls seem like the Buffalo Sabres are going to take Zachary Fucale in this draft to be their goaltender of the future. So would that mean that they buy out Ryan Miller's contract, or just trade Ryan Miller and just start from fresh with the Buffalo Sabres and just basically get rid of Ryan Miller? Ryan Miller would be a great addition to this team. I think if Ryan Miller comes here, Ryan Miller would probably be the starter, and Steve Mason would be the backup. So that's that. And then we get into the juicy details in here. There's obviously last year at the trade deadline, in addition to this year, Flyers are always in talks with Bobby Ryan. Now, what that has to do with goaltending is if the Flyers want to go out and get Bobby Ryan, I could see them getting Jonas Hiller as well in the deal. Because Anaheim has, I'm not sure who Anaheim has goaltending prospect-wise, but I know that they could start Victor Fast as in goal for this coming season, and that wouldn't be a horrible thing because Victor Fast did have a pretty good season last year. But if the Flyers do want to go out and get Bobby Ryan, I could see them asking for Jonas Hiller in the deal as well. However, the problem with that is Anaheim has a high asking price for Bobby Ryan, a ridiculously high asking price for Bobby Ryan. Bobby Ryan's not making too much money. I think he's only has like, what, a $5 million deal, which would kind of replace, and that'd be an amazing replacement for Danny Briere. Taking out Danny Briere and putting in Bobby Ryan, hell yeah, you could throw a first line with Claude Giroux, Jakub Voracek, and Bobby Ryan. Whew, that's a kind of scary first line if you think about it. But I don't know. I feel like Anaheim's asking price for Bobby Ryan is a little bit too high. Anaheim kind of wants the Flyers' 11th round pick, not the 11th round pick, the 11th overall pick in this year's draft for Bobby Ryan, and I don't know. Knowing Holmgren, he won't give up that 11th round pick. I know the Flyers for a fact want to keep that 11th round pick. I could see them trading guys like Braden Coburn away. Like, the Anaheim Ducks definitely need some more help on defense if they're going to have Victor Fast in that, so they need some help on defense. They're pretty much fine for offense. Anaheim needs some help on defense. I could see the Flyers giving away like Braden Coburn and then maybe like a Matt Reed or something like that, even though he's on the final year of his contract and the Flyers didn't sign him long term. I could see the Flyers maybe trading like Coburn, Matt Reed, and maybe somebody else, maybe like a prospect or something like that for Bobby Ryan and Jonas Hiller. I really just don't want the Flyers to give away that 11th round pick just because of the draft is so deep and they could get a good pick. Because even though the Flyers have the 11th round pick, I don't think they're going to draft at number 11. I think they're going to move up in that draft and maybe take Carolina's or Calgary's pick at like number 5 or 6 like that, so they can maybe go out and get Darnell Nurse. It would be beneficial for the Flyers to move up in this draft and get Darnell Nurse or something, some good defensive prospect like that. So there's a whole overview of what I think of the two buyout situations between Danny Briere and Ilya Bryzgalov. Leave comment. You guys can put your comments down below what you guys think as well, if these two buyouts were for the better or for worse of the Philadelphia Flyers. Like I said, it can go both either ways of all the stuff that I said, all the different things that I've said this year. But like as I said, if we take a look at what the lineup may look like for the Flyers next year, so you still got, I know Holmgren for fact, he's going to keep Giroux, he's going to keep Jakub Voracek, he's going to keep Wayne Simmons, he's going to keep Sean Couturier, he's going to keep Braden Shen, and he's going to keep Scotty Hartnell. So there's your top, if you had to go with it right now, there's your top 6. And then you have players like Zach Rinaldo, Max Talbot will probably be back. Fedotenko, I'm not sure about. Simon Gagne, I hope they re-sign him. It would really benefit the Flyers if they would re-sign Simon Gagne. And then just other depth like that with that could fill it in the minors, like Ty McGinn, Eric Wellwood, And who's the other prospect I'm thinking of? Oh, and Scott Lawton, duh. Scott Lawton can fill out this team as well. So there's my thoughts on this thing. This draft, which comes up on Sunday, is going to be very, very interesting to watch. It probably will be on the NHL Network or Versus or something like that. It's not called Versus anymore, but I still like to call it Versus. But yeah, leave your comments in the comment section below what you guys think of the 2 buyouts from the Philadelphia Flyers. And all I can say is this Sunday's draft is going to be very interesting, and I will probably be doing a review on that as well as who the Flyers drafted and what I think that the what kind of draft that the Flyers made, if it was good or not. So thanks for watching, guys, and make sure to tune to the draft this Sunday.